Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of the Six Rings Cane Show. I'm Vish from the Six Rings Cane Show. As you can see in the crawl, we do a show every Monday at 8:30. So, definitely check that out and subscribe to the Five Reasons Sports YouTube channel. But today, as the title of this suggests, I wanted to discuss a little bit the news that broke Friday afternoon on the sanctions against the University of Miami's entire athletic program stemming from quote unquote violations committed by the women's basketball program. So essentially, what happened? The narrative here is that Coach Katie Meyer had some impermissible connecting of the Cavender twins to John Ruiz, and because of that, she suspended herself for 3 games, which already happened to start this season, and some minor recruiting restrictions were put in place on the women's basketball program, and the entire athletics program was put on probation. Now, first, let's understand what probation is. It's similar to using it in a legal sense. It means you're on notice. If you do something else wrong, you're gonna get more severe penalties than you otherwise would have gotten. So that's all that means. It's not really going to affect the day-to-day anything for the school. It's more just, don't screw up in the next year. Otherwise, the penalties will be stiffer than they otherwise would have been. So that is what the probation is. So that's really a nothing. And frankly, the 3-game suspension was already served. It's also, it's something that the school chose to do is very harsh for what actually transpired, which we're going to get into in a minute. And the recruiting restrictions on the women's team are fairly minor, so shouldn't be that big of a deal. But I do want to talk about kind of the process by which this happened. So a lot of it has been tied into a social media post by John Ruiz where he, talked about having dinner with the Cavender twins and their representatives. Now, that might have slightly contributed to it, but what actually transpired here is, pretty standard NCAA stuff in that the crime that was committed, and I want to be clear about this, the crime that was committed was being the University of Miami. That is what they were punished for. And all of this other stuff around it is bait and switch. And let me explain why. So John Ruiz is obviously controversial, and I know it does. Even some of our fans do not like the way he self-promotes, the way he's so out front about his NIL endeavors. But I think what we have to understand is we are living in a new environment, and the whole purpose of NIL is marketing. It's name, image, and likeness. It's you can use the celebrity of athletes to promote your brands. That is what John Ruiz is doing. And what happened is as he does this, it's very uncomfortable for a lot of people, myself included to a certain degree, that are so used to the old way of working where you don't give the players anything of value. You can't do any of that. And if you do that, you're going to get into big trouble. So you don't talk about it. It's under the table payments. Like when schools would buy athletes, they would do it nefariously. And we're used to that. And frankly, even though knowing it's going on, kind of that hush-hush stuff, people are a lot more comfortable in that environment than they are now, where John Ruiz is out in the open doing it. But to be clear, the whole purpose of NIL is to promote branding. Of course he should be out there promoting it. That's in his best interest. We all know what Life Wallet is now. Why? Because he used NIL to boost its reputation. That was actually the purpose. But it made a lot of people uncomfortable. One, because he is using NIL for its intended purpose, but they're just not comfortable with that because, frankly, a lot of people don't want the players to get compensated at all, and that's the part they're objecting to. They'd rather bury their heads in the sand, and he makes it impossible to do that. The second thing is they don't want Miami to do it. They don't want Miami to do it, and that is the primary reason that this whole thing kicked off. So yes, he did post about the Cavender twins. He posted about a lot of stuff, and by the way, these athletes are in commercials. They're promoting his brand. They're all over social media. They're on TV. That is the purpose, is being used correctly. So why would the NCAA investigate a school for using it correctly? Because it's Miami. And anyone telling you otherwise is burying their heads in the sand. The first penalty that came out was for women's basketball with a legitimate NIL brand. And there's a reason that the NCAA did not try to punish John Ruiz at all, because it would have ended up in court and they wouldn't gotten slammed there. They purposely micro-targeted it at the school, and we'll get into the school's response and why they accepted this, given that I'm telling you it was not fair in a second. But if they'd gone a step further and gone after John Ruiz, they would have then gotten themselves into trouble with liability there. Because right now, since he was not harmed by it, he can't sue them. He can't really do anything. It's legal standing. There's a lot smarter people than me, than lawyers, that could talk you through that. But basically, you have to be able to prove that, you are impacted by something, and he can't really do that because they didn't touch him. With that said, the kind of order of events here is he's very vocal about it. And frankly, Miami's not supposed to be able to play NIL games. It's supposed to be for other people. It's supposed to be for Nick Saban and Alabama and Georgia to pay players under the table, but have it be legal now. It was never intended for Miami to use the actual city of Miami as a marketing hotbed to promote their own interest. And that is what has happened here. Is once that started happening, they decided we have to fix this. We cannot let Miami do that. So they spent 4 months investigating every program in Miami, trying to find a smoking gun, but there isn't, because again, NIL is for marketing purposes, and that is clearly what John Ruiz is doing here. So why go after Miami? Because it's Miami. That is the crime. That's always been the crime. It will always be the crime. And by crawling through the entire athletic department, everything's so on the up and up that what they found was this. Katie Meyer met John Ruiz at a booster event. They exchanged greetings, whatever. Down the road, she met with him to talk about his businesses. The Cavender twins were not sure if he was a legitimate businessman. She knew he was. And he's a legitimate businessman. LifeWalt's a legitimate company that you can use. You can use their product. It's real. She threw an assistant coach, told them, yes, he's legitimate. You can meet with him. That is it. By the way, that is now explicitly legal in NCAA bylaws. They changed the rules. So they're like, yes, the schools need to have some involvement here, because the original thing was unsure how much involvement they should have. But they said, yes, there needs to be some involvement here, because otherwise these kids can get into big trouble, right? There's a lot of shady characters looking to prey on them. So it's explicitly allowed for schools, as long as they don't negotiate the money or do any of that stuff, as long as it's not an inducement to attend the school. It is definitely allowable now for schools to connect NIL athletes with players. At the time Katie Meyer did it, it was not said that way in black and white. It was not explicitly illegal either, mind you. But that was the best they could find. So so that's what they went in with. And so that leads to the question, why would the university accept this? And there's a lot of layers to this. Number one, the NCAA investigating you is a pain, even if you're not doing anything wrong. There's spot inspections. You have to provide them material. Whenever they'll have investigators everywhere, it's like, oh, we need to meet with you now. You have to go do it. It is a pain. It's disruptive to the entire athletic department, especially in this case when this was a solution looking for a problem. The solution was they wanted to get Miami. The problem was they couldn't figure it out. So they literally investigate everything. Most NCAA investigations involve, oh, we think there's this violation, we'll investigate that violation. This was like, we're going to investigate everything and hope we find something. So this was very, very intrusive. So getting that in the rear view is a good thing for the school, even though they're not doing anything wrong. The second thing is they took the penalty when it was least impactful at the beginning of the women's season, suspended Katie Meyer for those 3 games, versus fighting it, and then having the NCAA come in and, right now, women are playing their last game senior day, head out to the Bank United Center tomorrow, cheer on those women on senior day. They don't want them to come in now and do that. So like, hey, we'll take it up front. Let's just get it in the rearview mirror. And the recruiting stuff is minor infractions. So the reason you do that is, one, it gets the NCAA out of your hair, like go away. 2, it just deburdens the entire athletic department. And one of the things you learn about as you get, and I'm sure some people listen to this, like run organizations, run companies, sometimes you have to do what is not just, because it's for the betterment of everyone. And that's what's happened here. The fair thing to do is, and the thing that will probably feel better just from a reactionary standpoint, is to go to the NCAA and say, we're not taking any penalty. We didn't do anything wrong, and fight this for years and have the NCAA fight them for years. But is that the best thing for the athletic department? The answer is no. So even though it's probably the right thing to do, it probably would feel really good. I'm sure Dan Rada, coach, would love to just two middle fingers in the air to the NCAA and say, you got to be kidding me. We're not standing for this. It's not the right thing to do for the people within the athletic department, because then they'll be subjected to scrutiny as this is ongoing. And you can never prevent the NCAA from coming in and just saying, hey, this guy's suspended, this coach is suspended, this player is suspended, right? Because they can do that, and then you can take it to court and fight it and try to get the suspension blocked. But that's a process, right? Does anyone want to risk, I don't know, if you look at these athletes that are contracted with life law, them just saying, oh, Nigel Pack, you're suspended for the NCAA tournament. No, of course we don't want to risk that. Even if it was wrong of them to do it, even if you sue them later, and then they rule that, hey, you won, that the damage is done. So just getting them out of that business and getting them out of any kind of reasonable opportunity to suspend anyone or do anything in terms of overreach was a good thing for the university. So they chose that path. It doesn't mean they do anything wrong. They did anything wrong. And in fact, in the statement they released, they basically said, look, in the interest of closing this out, we went ahead and took an over penalty. Essentially, it was not commensurate with the penalty was not commensurate with what they called our violation. So they even explicitly called that out, which probably felt cathartic. But they accepted the penalty. And the reason they did that was because just get it in the rearview mirror. But make no mistake, there are other schools blatantly violating NIL standards. There are schools that have collectives that have no marketing basis, no value. What is the name, image, and likeness adding to a collective? No one can even articulate it. But they chose to go after John Ruiz in Miami because it's Miami. And that is the headline here, that the first thing they did in terms of NIL enforcement was to go after someone that was using it so brazenly and explicitly for NIL. And the game is given away when you see these unnamed sources saying they're upset that the NCAA didn't go farther and try to disassociate Ruiz from the program. Because basically, there's essentially for lack of a better word, like a no-fly list for boosters, where if you're on that list, you cannot associate with college athletics. Any school associating with that booster is immediately in trouble. So it's not even like that there has to be a violation, just the association. And the game was given away when people say John Ruiz should be added to that list. And that is the complaint, that there was no sanction against him. He wasn't added to that list. Now, keep in mind, he didn't do anything wrong. This is for marketing, and as uncomfortable as it might make us, that is exactly what he's doing. When he tweets constantly about, I signed this person to this deal, look at this thing, look at that thing, Life Wallet, that is what it is for. And I cannot stress that enough. So they obviously didn't have a leg to stand on. Had they gone that route, they would have been sued, and they wouldn't have ended well for them, because he could actually then really hammer them, because, again, he's using it for marketing. So they're actually impacting his business by restricting him from working with college athletes unfairly. So in that sense, like, they knew they couldn't do it, but that was the reason the investigation in a lot of people's minds was lodged, not because Miami was doing anything wrong, but because they didn't want Miami to have access to John Ruiz. And when that was not the outcome, there are people upset that was not the outcome. That's all they wanted out of this. And that is, we have a term for that, and it's a witch hunt. That was the outcome they were trying to do. That was the solution, and then they tried to find the problem. They tried to find some way to tie him into some kind of violation so they could then say, you cannot associate with college athletics. That was the goal. They couldn't find that. They couldn't really find anything, so they reverse engineered a penalty against Katie Meyer. And we need to talk about Coach Meyer for a second, and this is where I'm going to get really upset. She is one of the good people in college basketball, in college athletics, period. This is someone that has dedicated their lives to making young women better, and this is crap. And I understand she accepted it, but we don't have to. And for the first NIL violation to be Katie Meyer is outrageous. outrageous. And unfortunately, the university, they have to be proper and they did say they fully back her. And obviously, we as a community back her. That's our coach. But they have to be proper. We don't. This is garbage. This is garbage. She, again, as a leader and as someone that cares about her program and her kids, did the right thing for them. She took the hit so that the kids wouldn't be impacted. Because they could have also, hey, we're going to suspend the Cavender sisters. They could have gone down that wormhole and forced things on the university. So she did the right thing by her players because that's what she always does. But out of all people in college athletics, for Katie Meyer to be the one they went after, you have to be kidding me. Again, the crime is nothing she did. In fact, what she did is not only explicitly allowed by their bylaws now, but something you would want. Wouldn't parents want their kids to be able to talk to their coach about potential NIL opportunities and whether or not this is a good idea or not? These coaches are there to guide and mold young men and women as they enter into a very complicated part of their life. And instead, we're saying, nope, not you, Coach Meyer. You don't do that. Ridiculous. And again, they took the penalty because it was the best thing, all things considered. You have to weigh these out, and even winning in court, fighting it might end up with the worst overall outcome. Just if they impose suspensions, if they keep impacting the team, if they have NCAA people around all over the place, that's worse than just taking that penalty. But she did nothing wrong here. And this is disgusting. This is disgusting from an organization that is always disgusting. So we definitely stand with Coach Meyer. We always will. And we are comfortable saying that because we know what she's made of. We know her character. And this crap from the NCAA, the shady person in this, and this is what happens every time they investigate Miami, by the way. It's a pattern of behavior. If you were investigating the NCAA right now, you would charge them with repeat violator status, because every single time they dig through the University of Miami, they come out looking worse. Here, they have found no violations of any substance, but punished one of the great people in college athletics. The Nevin Shapiro thing, they got into bed with the criminal that ruined hundreds of people's lives to try and prove that he did $100 handshakes and couldn't find anything, and then committed their own violations trying to prove it. Again, when you go into an investigation, if you're looking to investigate something legitimately, you'll either find it or you won't. If you're looking to punish someone, you'll go looking for something to find, and that's when you cut corners. That's when you do what the NCAA has done repeatedly with Miami. 10 years ago, it was a Yahoo story that then turned into, we got to get them, we got to punish them for this. Several years of investigation turned up nothing. Nothing. It turned up not a single thing that of substance. It was minor stuff that that happens every day that would have been a slap on the wrist. That's why the scholarship penalties were so light. They were non-impactful. But having that investigation drag out for several years certainly harmed the program, but the NCAA ended up looking worse. The NCAA had to report themselves because they were violating their own policies, trying to prove something that didn't happen, because they were taking the word of a liar and a fraudster. Fast forward to the Adidas scandal. Miami did nothing wrong there again, but they name dropped them. They put them in there. They went after them. And again, no sanctions at all, but that investigation harmed the school again. And now they've done it again. And that is another reason the university said, can we just close this off? It's probably better for everyone. We don't need another multi-year investigation turning up nothing. But the fact that the NCAA keeps coming in, keeps investigating, keeps finding nothing, it's because Miami runs a clean ship. They do. And especially with NIL, you have a lawyer. Lawyers are very good at reading the fine print. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows what lines not to cross. He knows, in fact, the dinner photo, he didn't pay for the food. He didn't feed them because he knew that would be the violation. He knows exactly what he's doing. And that's why they couldn't find anything, and that's why they couldn't charge him with anything. So, yes, the university did impose some sanctions. No, they haven't done anything wrong. And what we have here is the NCAA, once again, just trying to get Miami. They were unable to do so here. And, we're back to our steady state as Hurricanes fans, as people that cover them, as people around the program. This is, our standard state. The NCAA investigated us, found nothing, tried to punish us anyway. And everyone outside of South Florida, outside of our our Miami Hurricanes family looks at Miami and says, there's something shady must be going on there. It ain't there. It's Coral Gables. It's a nice little suburb of Miami. It's a private school. We educate people. We train our athletes. We hope they do well on the next level. And that's what we do at the University of Miami. There's nothing really happening there. And every single time this happened, they come in there. They want to find something. The net result is always this. There's no there because there is no there. So where does that leave the University of Miami? They are on probation, which we talked about at the front, for a year now, which means that if someone else slips up and gets caught doing something, the penalties will be more severe than they otherwise would have been. And the women's basketball team served most of the penalty already because Katie Meyer sat out the first 3 games. And the university will move forward. And I do have a feeling that if the NCAA comes calling again, I think next time it will probably – I think they kind of got stung here a little bit. And I don't know the next time they'll come looking. It's probably when the football program gets good again. And again, it'll be another situation where they're looking for a violation where there's no evidence of any. Because John Ruiz tweeting about NIL deals is actually evidence that he is doing it correctly. That is the proof that it is marketing. Now, all these collectives out there, all these other organizations that are piling money together from different sources with no intended purpose other than to pay the player, hard to tie that into marketing. John Ruiz's braggadocio is actually the sign that this thing is working and it's being done correctly. With that said, they still got punished. Again, slap on the wrist for Coach Meyer and the program as a whole, the athletics program. But it won't have any lasting impact. But it does, at least in my mind, I think for a lot of Hurricanes fans, just, cause us to stiffen a little bit here and cause us to become a little bit more insular. Because frankly, you can have two things be true. We can be paranoid, which certainly we are, and have that actually be true. And every single time something like this happens, it just reinforces the fact that we are constantly being told we don't belong there. We're constantly being told that we can't do things that other schools are allowed to do, that we get held to a different standard. And frankly, we're used to it. So we're right back in that steady state, and we'll lock arms around our program like Hurricanes fans always do. And we'll move forward. This is not going to harm anything long-term. And it's not going to really harm anything short-term. We took most of the pain already. So that's where this stands. It's not going to be a lasting impact on anything. It's just another kind of brick in the evidence that, yes, there is one standard for all of the programs in college athletics, and there is another one for the University of Miami. And we've seen that again here today. And it's the situation we operate in, and we're used to it. So, business as usual for the NCAA, business as usual for Miami. And we'll see what crime they come up with next time to charge Miami with. But I think we all know at the core of it, the violation will be being the Miami Hurricanes. And you know what? I was speaking as a Miami Hurricane alum, and I think for all of our fans that are alums that aren't alums, we'd rather be a Miami Hurricane and be your target than be anything else. So bring it on, NCAA. And next time, at least find a little evidence. Anyway, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll have a full show on Monday. We'll probably talk about this. We'll definitely talk about Tim Harris Jr. If you're not doing it this weekend, men's basketball, 4 p.m. today. I'm recording this Saturday morning against FSU. Baseball, 7 p.m. And women's basketball, senior day. Let's go support Coach Meyer's show where we got her back tomorrow at noon at the Bank United Center. Check it out. Like and subscribe. We'll see you guys Monday.
The SixthRingCanes Show. Yeah. The SixthRingCanes Show. Yeah. The SixthRingCanes Show. You know.